Hey guys, it's Mariana and it's time for another monthly wrap-up. So today I'm going to be quickly telling you about everything that I read and watched in August. And if I am a little bit extra sassy in this video, it's because I'm filming it for the second time, because the first time I filmed it, there was no audio involved. I'm so annoyed right now. Also, just to let you know, there are timestamps in the info bar below for the 3 topics that I'm talking about, because I know some of you are more interested in books than movies, some are more interested in movies than books, so if you want to jump around the video for different topics, you can do that now. Just check out the info bar. And we are going to start with books, as always. So the first book that I read in August was Armada by Ernest Cline, and this is a pretty controversial book at the moment because some people really didn't like this one. I actually gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and you can find out more about that in my review video that I have posted on this channel that I will link below. This is a science fiction adventure novel about a guy named Zach Lightman who plays this video game called Armada, which is very popular in this book's universe. And one day he sees a spaceship outside of his window that looks exactly like the spaceship from this game. So his adventures kind of take off from there. And just like Ready Player One, which is another novel by Ernest Cline, this book is filled with pop culture references. So if you like that type of stuff, definitely check this book out. After that, I read Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, who is the same author who wrote Gone Girl, which I really enjoyed. And I was hoping I was really going to enjoy this one as well, because I like reading dark and twisted thrillers. That's fun for me, but somehow this actually ended up being a little bit too dark for me, believe it or not. Dark Places is about a woman named Libby who went through a childhood tragedy when she was 7 years old, and her pretty much entire family was murdered, and her brother was convicted of the murder, and now as an adult she's kind of forced by her circumstances to revisit the events of her past and kind of deal with them again. And this sounds like a really interesting premise, and I have to say the plot of this book was what kept me going, because the plot is definitely engaging and I thought the ending was really awesome and twisted and great. However, I did not love any of the characters. I can't say I related to anybody, so I didn't really care what happened to the characters, which isn't a good thing. I also kind of have a problem with stories that have their characters in really shitty circumstances and then the characters continue being in shitty circumstances or go from one set of problems to the next set of problems, and I felt like that's kind of what this book did, which is why this wasn't really an enjoyable experience for me. I honestly just read it for the plot, but overall I definitely did not love this. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I have to say, if you are a fan of really dark and twisted thrillers with fucked up characters, you will probably enjoy this, but for me, this was a little bit too much. Then I decided to go for nonfiction, so I listened to You're Never Weird on the Internet Almost by Felicia Day, and I love Felicia Day, and I honestly didn't think I could love her more, but this book did make me love her more. I gave this memoir 5 out of 5 stars. It was actually narrated by Felicia Day herself, so I definitely recommend listening to the audiobook. Just don't forget to download the PDF that comes with it, because it has all of the amazing photos from her book that you don't want to miss out on, because they're kind of adorable and hilarious. I do have a full review of this book on my blog, so I will link that down below along with everything else I talk about in this video. As always, I always have links down below. You should always check out the info bar. But this book is just honest and hilarious and beautifully written, and you are going to relate to it, and it is just, I love it. It is a great memoir. You should check it out. Then I read Coraline by Neil Gaiman, and this was a gift from my friend Lindsay to me, and I love this edition. Thank you so much. This is a 10th anniversary edition. First of all, it comes in this awesome purple and black slipcase, which is already a win. Second, it is actually signed, so if I actually can open the page that's signed, it's signed, as you can see, so that's very exciting because Neil Gaiman touched my book. And also it has these amazing creepy illustrations, which I love, so this edition is just perfect. And if you are not familiar with Coraline, which I haven't seen the movie, so maybe you're not familiar with the story either, it is about this girl this one over here, who finds a door inside her apartment that leads into this kind of parallel world where the same people and the same apartment exist, except for everything is twisted and there's a talking cat involved and the parents have buttons instead of their eyes. Is just really creepy and strange, and it definitely reminded me of Alice in Wonderland, which is a good thing. And Neil Gaiman's writing is amazing. As you can imagine, I loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and Neil Gaiman's imagination is a wonderful place. The last book that I read in August was Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer, and this was kind of a spur-of-the-moment decision because I wasn't really planning on reading this book, but then I realized that the movie that's coming out soon called Everest is actually based on this book, so of course I had to check out the book before I watched the movie, which I'm actually very interested in, and I did not expect to love it as much as I did. I also gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This was such an eye-opening experience. This book to me was simultaneously fascinating and horrifying, and I learned so much while reading it. I'm so glad I read it. I learned about mountain climbing, which I never really cared much for, but apparently it is a very interesting subject to me. I also learned about the effects of high altitude on human body, which are terrible, by the way. This memoir is about people who went to ascend Everest and then got caught by a terrible storm, and some of them died terribly. It is a very tragic book. It is a very graphic book, but you cannot put this down. I kid you not. In the beginning, it is a little bit slow because Jon Krakauer definitely goes into a lot of detail about the background of the climbers that he met and about his own motivations for ascending Everest. But once the story gets going, I just did not want to stop reading it, and I will definitely be doing a full review on this, and like I said, I cannot wait to see the movie. That's it for books, and the only comic book series that I read in August was Lazarus Volume 2, and if you remember, if you've seen my July wrap-up, I started this comic book series in July. I wasn't the biggest fan of the first volume, but it kept me interested enough to continue reading, and unfortunately I can't say the same about Volume 2. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I still liked it. I don't hate this series, but I figured out that it just isn't my cup of tea, which is kind of funny because the premise sounds like it's right up my alley. It is a dystopian setting. We have these families who have this one person called Lazarus, and this is essentially a genetically engineered protector of the family, and this genetically engineered person has to obey the family's orders, and this is about one such individual, and she is a pretty interesting character, and the setting is interesting, and there's definitely some political stuff happening in this world that is interesting, but somehow the way the story is being told just doesn't hold my attention, and I'm not the biggest fan of the art either. There's nothing wrong with the art per se, but it is just not my favorite, so I really don't think I'll be continuing with the series unless all of you suddenly tell me that this is the most amazing series later on. But if you are interested in something like this, I would definitely give it a shot because I know a lot of people are enjoying this. Moving on to movies, the first movie that I saw in August was Paper Towns, and I know this came out at the end of July, but I didn't get to see it then. This is an adaptation of a John Green book under the same title, and as far as book-to-screen adaptations go, I would say this one's pretty decent. So if you enjoyed the book version of Paper Towns, I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy the movie version of Paper Towns. But as someone who didn't love Paper Towns as a book, I didn't really think the movie was anything all that special either. I have to say I enjoyed the movie a little bit more than the book, but I still think there are just better coming-of-age stories out there. I thought the beginning was pretty interesting, but the plot kind of fizzled towards the end, and in general, I just don't think this movie is all that special. I thought the casting was good. I thought there were some really good moments, but overall, this just wasn't for me. And the plot revolves around Q, who is a guy in high school. He doesn't really lead the most exciting life. He likes to play it on the safe side. He also lives next door to Margot, who goes to his his high school, and she is essentially a manic pixie dream girl. She one night comes into his room through the window and invites him on a revenge quest, and then after that, Q thinks they had some kind of connection and that they're going to be friends from now on, or maybe something more, but Margot actually disappears. She just goes missing, and Q decides that it is his mission to go and find her, and that's kind of the premise. I gave this movie 3 out of 5 stars. I just didn't think it was all that special, like I said. After that, I saw The Gift, which was a surprisingly good psychological thriller. It is a slow building but wonderful movie, and if you enjoy psychological thrillers, you definitely need to check this one out. It is directed and written by Joel Edgerton, who is also one of the lead characters plays one of the lead characters in this movie, along with Jason Bateman and Rebecca Hall. And I do have a full review of this movie on my channel, so you should check that out, and you should definitely check out the movie as well. Then I saw The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is a spy action film. It is based on a 60s TV show. It is set in the 60s, and I was actually really looking forward to this one. It looked fun. It looked like it was kind of borderline a spy action comedy, and it was a Guy Ritchie film, which could mean a good thing, could mean a bad thing. For me, Guy Ritchie is kind of a hit or miss director, but I actually have to say I was pretty disappointed. I still enjoyed the movie. I thought it had some fun stuff in it. It had some really cool scenes, but I ended up giving the movie 3.5 out of 5 stars because ultimately I thought it was a bit disappointing. I do have a full review of this as well, so you can check that out on my channel. Then I saw American Ultra, which is a spy action comedy with Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart, and this one has been getting really mixed reviews. It seems like the critics aren't really loving it, and then the audiences are a little bit more forgiving, and I have to say I actually really enjoyed the movie. I reviewed it. You should check out my review, but in general I thought it was a lot of fun. It's kind of a mix between the Pineapple Express and the Bourne Identity, except for it's not as much of a stoner comedy as Pineapple Express, and it is just a fun watch. I think it is worth checking out. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and like I said, I have a review on my channel. Then I saw an independent film called The Diary of a Teenage Girl, and this is about a girl growing up in the 70s, and she is having an affair with her mother's boyfriend, which sounds really unsettling. And what's interesting about this movie is that it really isn't a story of a sexual predator. It doesn't really judge its characters. It is a coming-of-age story from a female perspective, and way better than Paper Towns, let me tell you that. You should definitely check out this movie if it's playing anywhere around you. I gave this movie 4.5 out of 5 stars. I thought it captured the atmosphere of the 70s beautifully, and also I thought it was a very well done film and a very compelling story. I do have a full review of this as well. I did really well with reviewing movies this month, but I can't say the same about books, so yeah, you can check out my review. I will link it along with everything else. And the last film that I saw in August was Z for Zachariah, and this one is oddly enough in some theaters, but also available on video on demand, so I rented it on iTunes. And this movie is really difficult to give a rating to because it is one of those films that is a slow-burning drama that isn't really super engaging and super enjoyable as you're watching it, but then afterwards, when you think about it and you analyze it, you start liking it more. This takes place in a post-apocalyptic setting, and I'm pretty sure after a nuclear war there is radiation everywhere except for this one valley in the United States. And there's this one girl played by Margot Robbie who lives in this valley. She's kind of hunting and gardening and just living out her life, and one day she stumbles upon another man, and then they just kind of start living together. They don't really have a relationship, like a romantic relationship per se. They're just kind of the last 2 people left on Earth, and they're just making it work, trying to figure out how to survive. And then one day they stumble upon another dude, and things get a little bit more complicated from there. From the trailer, this looked like a thriller, but then it started looking like a love triangle thing thrown in there. In reality, this is not a thriller at all. This is just a slow burning drama that turns into kind of a love triangle, and it has some very interesting commentary when it comes to race and social status and gender and religion and a lot of things to think about. But as you're watching it, you're just kind of thinking, why is this so slow? So in the end, if I had to rate this, I would probably give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's definitely an interesting film to check out, and if this sounds like it's right up your alley, you can rent it on iTunes or wherever you rent movies, and you'll probably enjoy it. And it's definitely something that gives you food for thought. But if you're just looking for a fun film to watch something else. That's it for my August wrap up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have read or seen the same things as I did, and what did you think of them. And let me know what was your favorite book that you read in August and your favorite movie that you saw in August, because I am always looking for suggestions, and if I missed something, I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching this video once again. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!